This report is about restrictions on foreign funding to independent civil society. And why is that important? Because this mechanism on putting restrictions on foreign funding is becoming a global trend. What we see over time is that there is an influx of the gongos and the organizations supportive of the government's policies, and they take over, they occupy the space for the independent civil society. They occupy the narrative from this independent civil society. The main purpose by the authorities, by using this mechanism, is to control and silence the independent voices talking about human rights. Very often, the only source of funding to the human rights work is from foreign donors. There's very little or no funding domestically. So when they are putting restrictions on foreign funding, it's very effective because it goes straight to the very core of the human rights work.
The restrictions on the foreign funding came since the beginning of 2014, and the entire NGO sector in Azerbaijan was affected by these restrictions, and we had the effect on everything. So this is a legal environment, this is financial viability, organizational capacity, advocacy, public image of the organization, social provision, and infrastructure. Our organization was as affected as anyone else. We are a 15-year-old NGO, women working on the women's empowerment and participation. And unfortunately, many of our programs had to be reduced or completely cancelled. In the 4 years, more than 50 international organizations closed down their offices in the country and left the country. And if you look at the international community in Azerbaijan now, it just consists of the embassies, several UN agencies, and that's it. So what is needed for now is that the international organization can make actually the common démarche for not just for Azerbaijan but for all the countries where this primary right of the organization for the financial resources is won back. As a representative of civil society, I don't want the situation when the civil society is working behind the curtains. I just want to openly and proudly be demonstrating the great work which our organization and many other organizations are doing in the country. And I don't want to be punished for that. I don't want to be feared for that. I don't want to be blamed for that, because it's really a great job and it brings so much good for our country and for our people.
I would say that you have two types of regimes imposing restrictions of NGO fundings. You have a group of countries like Russian Federation, Azerbaijan, and then you have a second type of countries in which are countries like Croatia or some other European Union countries where you would have a growing administrative and financial barriers set up by the donors or by the state. On every one program employee, we have to have at least 1.5 or sometimes even 2 persons dealing with administration and finances, which basically is the purpose of having a project or implementing the value-based project. The second problem we have, and this goes especially for human rights NGOs in Croatia, that there is no designated human rights funding for us. We always have to kind of present our work and reframe it in other terms. So if we want to do human rights education for students or high school pupils, we would have to frame it as a European project on mobility. Human rights education is needed. Human rights are an integral part of every democratic society, and there should be designated funding. So human rights takes time. It takes time to achieve sustainable change in the society, and project funding is not suitable for that kind of work.
The findings of this report, Funding Civil Society, they are really very important, and they are built on 4 main recommendations, one of which is flexibility. And I think that flexibility is really one of the key issues. The donors and the international community should understand that sometimes if they are not flexible, it can cost very high for the civil society. So there is some emergency reaction needed from the side of international community and donors to be flexible enough to support the civil society in time.